In this presentation, you are going to learn how to use the insert statement. If you look back at the previous work that we've done on the select statement, the select statement allowed you to display information from a table. It didn't make any changes to the table itself. So for the first time, we are now going to use a statement that's going to change the table in terms of adding a new record. And that's what the insert statement does. The insert statement, insert means to add. It adds a new record into our table. And in adding a new record, it is actually changing the table structure. So let's look at the syntax for the insert statement. When we say insert, into, and values, those are the three keywords. If you had to try to remember how to use the insert statement, remember insert, into, and then values. So the first part is insert into, and then you specify the table that you are inserting into. That table has fields or columns, so you specify the columns that you are inserting values for, and then the values correspond to the values for the fields you're inserting. And there has to be a one-to-one relationship. So when you are inserting value 1 must correspond with field 1. When you're inserting value 2, it must correspond with field 2 or column 2, and value 3 must correspond with field 3 or column 3. So there's this one-to-one mapping that must always be in place. So that's the one way you can use the insert statement. The second way in which you can use the insert statement is where you say insert into values. So there's no compromise with that. Insert into and values, but you're not specifying the fields. If you don't specify the fields, then the assumption that is made is that the values are corresponding to the fields the way they are in the database. So you can't change the order of the values. So the value 1 will correspond to the first field in the table. Value 2 must correspond with the second field. Value 3 must correspond with the third field. The other assumption that's being made, besides the one-to-one relationship, is that you are adding all the fields. You're not leaving out any fields. You're adding all the fields in your table, except if you have an auto number. For an auto number field, we don't add a value for it. Apart from that, when you leave out the fields, remember that they must be in a one-to-one mapping in terms of how it appears in the table. And 2, you have to have a value for every field in the table. So let's look at some examples. Before we look at the examples, again, all the examples are based on this particular table structure. It's TBL actors, that's the table name. And take note that you've got a field which is your primary key actor ID. That's an auto number, it's auto-generated. So when we're inserting a value, we will not insert values for the actor ID. These are generated by the database itself. So when we're inserting, we've got actor name, surname, date of birth, age, cell number, is local, and annual earnings. And it's worth taking a note that cell number has a space in it. So we'll need to use square brackets when referring to that particular field. So let's look at this particular example. We now want to add a new actor, and these are all the details for the actor. Okay, as I indicated, the actor ID, we're not going to input that. That is an auto number. That's automatically generated. So the actor name is Rab and the surname is Rabbit. That is the date of birth, age, that's the cell phone number, he's foreigner, and that's the annual earnings for Rabbit. So what will our insert statement look like if we inserting this record into our table? Well, I'm going to write the solution, two solutions for this. The one, so here are all my details. The actor name, it's Rabbit, date of birth, age, cell number, is local, is false, and the earnings are 95,000. So let's now look at how we write this. So there it is, insert, into, and values. So I'm specifying the field names. So there's actor name, actor surname, date of birth, age, cell number has a space, so I'm using square brackets, is local, and annual earnings. And now for the values, and as I indicated, there must be this one-to-one mapping. So the first value here has to correspond with the first value there, which is your actor name. And then the second number corresponds with the actor surname, which is there. And then we know that because date of birth is a date field, you enclose that between a hash. That's one of the rules when you're working with the date. And that corresponds with the third field. And then we have the age. The age is the fourth field. We've got the cell number, that's text. Cell number, it's not a number, it's text, therefore we need to have it in quotes. There is that field. False is the value for, is he local? No, he's a foreigner, and 95,000 will refer to the annual earnings. So this is how we would go about inserting these values using the insert statement in SQL. But if I look at it very carefully, all the values that I need to input, all of these values, they are the same values that are in the table and they are in the right order. So I could use another solution, and in this you will notice I can leave out the fields. There's no need for me to specify the fields, as long as the order corresponds to the order in which it is in the table. And because my order corresponds, this could be a solution in terms of how I go about inserting these values into my table. So there's two ways of doing this. Let's look at the second example. In the second example, I'm doing exactly the same as the previous example, but I'm just changing the order. It's not in the same sequence as the fields in the table. So now I've got, instead of having name first, I've got surname, then I've got the name. I brought in annual earnings was the last field. I'm now putting in annual earnings, age, cell number. So it's the same record that I want to insert, but you are given, when the question is given to you, it's given in a way where it's not in order. So if I choose to keep the order in the same manner in which it is given to me, then I will write the solution as follows. So in this instance, I'm going to say insert into, and there's my values here. Okay, insert into TBL actors, and remember the order has been changed, so it's actor surname. And if you look at my value, the value corresponds to the actor surname. Then we've got the actor name, and that corresponds. Similarly, we've got the annual earnings, and again, that corresponds. So I'm still maintaining age corresponds. I'm maintaining my one-to-one mapping. There's the cell number. Is local, that comes next. And finally, the date of birth, that's enclosed between the hash. So if you choose to insert the values and the sequence is not the same, then you have to specify the sequence in which the values are going to appear. So this is the sequence in which I am inserting my fields, and the values are appearing in the same sequence. You could ask the question, if you are told in a particular question and they give you the fields in this particular order, can you change it? I don't see any reason why you can't change it, but just ensure that the rules still apply in terms of the one-to-one mapping. So if you wanted to omit all of these fields and not have them because you are inserting all the values, that's fine. You could omit these, all of these could be omitted, but ensure that the order in which you write them here must correspond to the order in which it is in the table. And you're not leaving out any field. Obviously, you will leave out the auto number, but no other field will be left out. Let's look at the next example. And here I'm inserting a new record, but I don't need all the values. So I'm leaving out the annual salary. I'm leaving out, well, the date of birth is here. Some of the other fields, whether they are foreigner or local, I'm leaving that out. So the only information that I want to insert for this record is the actor name, surname, date of birth, age, and the cell number. So how would I go about inserting this? To do this, you have to specify the field names. We cannot omit the field names because we are not inserting all the records. So here we say insert into our table, and this part cannot be left out because we are not inserting all the values. So again, your one-to-one relationship. Actor name, Kanga. Surname, Ru. The date of birth, that's enclosed between the hash. The age, 10. And the cell number, well, that's the cell number. So take note that you can insert values. That's not all the values. You can omit, maybe I should say it in this way, you can omit some of the values when you are inserting into a table. So that concludes how you would go about inserting values into a table. And this was one of the quotes I thought was really interesting. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, teach you, and push you to be your best self. And that was a quote by Bill Gates.